Welcome to Meet the Candidates, a forum for candidates in the August 9th primary election for a 4-year term on Blaine City Council, Ward 3. The top 2 vote getters in this primary will be on the ballot in the general election on November 8th. I'm Linda Rogers of the Anoka, Blaine, Coon Rapids area League of Women Voters, who sponsor Meet the Candidates. I live in Anoka and cannot vote for any of the candidates. All candidates were invited to this forum. The League of Women Voters does not support or oppose any political party or candidates. The League does help citizens become informed voters, and we advocate for important issues. This forum is about informing voters. If you're interested in the League, visit our webpage, LWV ABC MN.org. We invite people of all genders and young adults to join. The candidates will answer 2 introductory questions they received in advance, followed by questions submitted by the public via our League website, and some questions of importance to the League of Women Voters. And then we'll end with closing statements. Answers are limited to 90 seconds for each of the 2 introductory questions and 1 minute for the questions that follow. Candidates will take turns being the first to answer a question. Welcome to Blaine City Council Ward 3 candidates Amanda Matchett and Al Goracke. And we'll start the forum, logically, with the introductory questions. Candidate Goracke, what is your motivation to run for this office, and what experience or knowledge would help you serve effectively?
Thank you, Linda. Thank you, League of Women Voters. And my motivation to run for office is simple. It's just service. I'm a servant leader, and it's not a new concept for me. I've been serving in Blaine for 20 plus years of the 31 years that I've lived in Blaine. I'm the youngest of 10 kids, and service was always a part of my family. When all of my siblings were home, we went through 21 loaves of bread and 10 gallons of milk each week. I grew up knowing that real life is about serving others in a world of limited resources. I married my college sweetheart of 37 years, and by the way, she is a lifelong resident of Blaine. We have 2 married adult children and 2 perfect grandchildren. My wife and I owned a 4-store dry cleaning operation with one of those stores in Blaine. In an 11-year period of time, we employed 300 plus people. I became the lead pastor of Hope Church in 2000. In that time, my entrepreneurial and intrapreneurial skills have been leveraged as we've started 3 independent churches from our Blaine location. I'm also the founder and volunteer CEO of Hope for the Community Food Shelf. We've opened 4 food shelf locations, and we're opening up another 5 locations in the next 12 months. We are one of the largest food shelves in Minnesota, and we're on pace to serve 56,000 families, 2 million pounds of groceries. Each year, we give the residents of Blaine approximately $5 million retail value of food. My life is about serving and helping people. The churches and food shelves were all established without any financing. I was able to obtain all those resources. Oh, I ran out. As a pastor talks too much. Sorry about that. But I'm a resource specialist, and I believe that that's what the Blaine City Council needs.
Thank you. Candidate Matchett, same question. What is your motivation to run? What would help you serve effectively?
Sure, my motivation is really twofold. First, it's my family. My entire family lives here in Blaine. That's my sister and her families, and my 2 precious nephews who go to Sunrise here, all the way through to my parents who are retired small business owners. They owned a small business in Coon Rapids and are spending their retirement years here in Blaine. And then second is I also have been raised to have a heart for service. I read recently the book These Precious Days by Ann Patchett, and she said, "It is our responsibility to create for one another, to create fairness in the face of unfairness, and to find equality where none may have existed in the past. And that really resonated with me. I have been the benefit of a great number of resources, and really I just want the opportunity to give back. I've been practicing law for the past decade here in Minnesota. The entire time I'm an adjunct professor at the University of Minnesota as well as St. Thomas, both the law schools there. I'm the secretary of the Minnesota Association of Black Lawyers, and I've served on the St. Paul Chamber of Commerce, which is the third largest chamber of commerce in the state, and the Minnesota Black Chamber of Commerce as well. I was chair of the Human Rights Committee for the State Bar Association. I also serve on the board of directors for the Iowa State Alumni Association, where I'm a proud graduate, and am a member of Kappa Delta Sorority Alumni Group. A little bit about me as well is that I'm a rescue pet owner, and I have a dog named Barkley and a cat named Maxine. So, it's really just making sure that all of the people in my life have the best opportunity to succeed and live in a great community. So thank you for having us tonight.
Thank you. And Amanda Matchett, what are your goals for Blaine's future?
Sure. I have a lot of goals, but the biggest goal is for me personally is to really be two things to Blaine, and that's an ear and a voice. I want to listen to the needs and wants of Blaine citizens as well as being a proactive advocate. We all know Highway 65 is a mess. We all know that it needs improvements. And like a lot of things in life, it's all about relationships and what relationships you've built. I have endorsements from both Minnesota House and Senate representatives, which just shows that I have formed those relationships needed to get that work done. We have a budget surplus, we have the opportunity, we have the plans. We need a leader who's going to knock on the door until it gets done. And really having those relationships with people, I think, will benefit all of Blaine to get that done for us. I really am committed to reinvesting our tax dollars back in Blaine. That means supporting local Blaine residents to, develop a downtown, to develop in Northtown. We have 500 acres of wetlands. That is amazing outdoor space. We want to build that. So one, it creates jobs. Two, it provides educational opportunities for our students here in Blaine. And then just to support local businesses. We know that Blaine is seeing unprecedented growth. I want to make sure that the people who are running their businesses the right way, the ones who are local to Blaine, are getting the opportunity to advance. And then safety is also really important to me. Again, that goes with, the Highway 65 improvements, but also addressing the suicide epidemic, and then also, fostering relationships with law enforcement and the fire team as well.
Thank you. Al Goracke, your goals for Blaine's future.
Well, it's been said that Highway 65 separates Old Blaine from New Blaine as well as east from west, but it also connects us. Some estimates say that to redesign and redevelop Highway 65, it'll cost $160 million to $200 million to do it. As a humanitarian and a faith leader, I can speak to people from every political spectrum, and it doesn't matter if they're a millionaire or a dollar-aire, I can influence them, and I will get the resources for Highway 65. Many of our side streets in Ward 3 are getting destroyed because people will do anything to avoid Highway 65. There is a $9 billion surplus at the state of Minnesota in the Treasury, and I can guarantee you right now, in Coon Rapids and in Maple Grove and other cities, they're strategizing how to get those resources for their specific interests. I say it's Blaine's time. So I believe that Highway 65 has to be a priority. As Highway 65 goes, so will Blaine. I also believe in innovative economic development. I've been on the Planning Commission for 14 years and the Charter Commission for 12 years here, and we have great plans for the future. And one of them is redesigning Northtown Mall. And so Northtown Mall, the plan, I was on the charrette, and what they did was they got a group of industry leaders together and talked about what that could look like. And that'll look like a mix of residential, it'll look like individual restaurant plots and some very innovative things, as well as on 105th Avenue. They're looking at actually redeveloping it where you'll have walking and bike paths, and there'll be restaurants and retail for 21st century people. So I believe in innovative economic development.
Thank you. The next questions came from the public via our website. Once they came in, I grouped them by topic, and the topics that emerged were public safety, diversity, public involvement in decision-making, transportation, unions, environment, and government's role and government's effectiveness. We'll try and touch on at least one question in each of those areas, but we won't be able to get through all that were submitted. If you have any questions that weren't answered in this forum when you come to the end of it, be sure to contact the candidates directly. The first topic, public safety. Al Goracke, what does community safety mean to you?
Well, it's a great question. Thank you, Linda. I served also, one of the very first service positions that I've had here in Blaine was as a chaplain for the SBM firefighters and the police officers here. And so I went on ride-alongs with the police officers, and I actually worked with them and usually was on those death notification nights where I had to talk to a parent about losing a loved one either by addiction, overdose, or by suicide. And so I can tell you clearly we have a great first responder group here in Blaine. The Blaine Police Department has 76 sworn officers. 45 of them are patrol officers, and there's another 17 officers that are not sworn officers. And I can tell you that we have a great police department, and I just saw the crime statistics, and Blaine's violent crime is down compared to last year. And so Blaine has got a plan to add more officers for the next 5 years. I do know Chief Bedani's got a great plan.
Amanda Matchett, what does community safety mean?
Community safety means a lot of things. I think, law enforcement and fostering relationships with law enforcement is always going to be paramount. Minnesota is also 48th in spending on our fire resources. There's only 2 other states that spend less than we do, and the fire department does a lot other than just put out fires. And so we need to, invest in those resources and make sure they have what they need to succeed and what they have to serve the community. But it's also addressing the suicide epidemic. My sister is a school psychologist in the Anoka Hennepin School District. We've had these tough conversations, and you have to feel comfortable having those tough conversations to address really the root of the problem. And then also the infrastructure as well. There's, as we've talked about, Highway 65 isn't just an eyesore or a pain. It's dangerous, and people die there, regularly. So I think there's got to be a multifaceted, approach to community safety that focuses on several of those areas to make sure that we all feel safe and can thrive here.
Candidate Matchett, you've touched on this a bit already. What can the city do beyond policing to improve public safety?
Right. So, like I said, I think we all have to focus on those improvements to Highway 65. We have to. My dad's a school bus driver as well for Spring Lake Park, so he drives, our students and our children every single day. We have to make sure that we feel confident sending our kids to school, with our roads and our infrastructure. I think also the city can provide resources, provide a safe space, provide leaders who understand that there are mental health issues in the community, especially post-COVID. So, fostering those relationships with law enforcement is absolutely paramount, but there's definitely other focuses, and I think a lot of times those can get lost in the weeds. And so I think that's where someone like me can be a leader on those issues and make sure we're not, we don't have any blind spots to some of those other areas of community safety that are certainly as important, if not more so.
Candidate Goracke, what can the city do beyond policing?
Well, I think I agree with Amanda that, again, it comes back, everything is going to come back to Highway 65 because it's a crucial part of our infrastructure here in Blaine. A couple months ago, someone lost their life, a 51-year-old woman and a mother who was T-boned. She was going across 109th, which is the worst intersection probably in Blaine, 109th and 65, and she was T-boned by somebody. Now, if we would have had those infrastructure plans in place and repaired, there would have been an overpass that took her over that, and she would be still alive today. And Amanda's right about the issue of mental health. That's part of public safety. As a pastor, it's not just as I see it, and that's not just the students. It's the elderly actually that are struggling with mental health due to COVID issues. There's all kinds of amazing nonprofits that we have in Blaine, but many of you probably don't even know that our food shelf in Blaine is the largest one in Anoka County, and there's other amazing nonprofits that can help us. And so I think that's a part of the puzzle as well, to help people with public safety.
And candidate Goracke, please address this another aspect of public safety. What strategies might City Council consider to eliminate human trafficking in Blaine?
Yeah, I mean, it's an amazing thing to think that there is still human trafficking. I'm actually an ordained minister in the Wesleyan Church, and the Wesleyan Church during the Civil War was a big advocate for the freedom of enslaved people. And so for me, I look at it in the 21st century, and I'm like thinking the number one thing that we need to do is we need to be aware that it's still here. A lot of people, they don't think that it's even real or it's some political thing, but it still happens. So I think there needs to be an awareness, and I also believe that there needs to be more enforcement as far as policing of different events, especially when we have 7.5 million people come to Blaine. I don't know if people know this, we're the 10th largest city in Minnesota, and we're the #1 city in tourism with 7.5 million people coming here. So it's a big issue, and I think we need awareness and we need enforcement, and especially during these peak events.
Amanda Matchett, what strategies might City Council consider?
So I had the privilege of serving as the chair of the Minnesota Human Rights Commission of the State Bar Association when the Super Bowl was here. And large events like the Super Bowl, or the large events that we have here in Blaine at national sports and at the golf course, those can be hotbeds for human trafficking. And so I was able to partner with folks at the airport who have a lot of training in that to kind of understand some of those ramifications. But that's not the only time and place that it's an issue. There's also labor workers who are basically forced into servitude and, are not paid a fair wage, which is a form of trafficking as well. It's labor trafficking, and that's happening right here. And that's something we really need to be concerned about as we develop economically and bring businesses and have construction and whatnot to Blaine. So it's not just those events that absolutely bring human trafficking, but we have day-to-day activities in Blaine that do that as well too. And so I have experience, with different organizations and have really led the charge on human trafficking at the state level.
Another topic that emerged from the questions that the public submitted was diversity. Candidate Matchett, how will you be able to represent the various communities we find in Blaine today?
I really appreciate this question. After the last census, 26% of Blaine are people of color. And yet with the resignation of Councilman Paul, there's not a single person of color on the council. And so right there, I think I can be a representative that those people deserve to have a voice on the council as well. They deserve to have a voice in this community. They are valid members of this community, and I can be that voice for them. That being said, I think it's important to engage everyone. I think we need people of different ages and political spectrums and religions and race who have a voice and feel like they can be heard. I am a native Midwesterner. I'm a practicing attorney. I have helped with asylum work. I meet with people all different spectrums, and I want to, like I mentioned, I want to be that ear and that voice for them. And so, it's not just about being a Black woman myself, but also putting myself in a situation where I'm willing to hear anyone out. And I think that's so important, and that representation is so important, and it's deserved.
Candidate Goracke, how will you be able to represent the various communities we find in Blaine today?
Yes, it's kind of the question, what comes first, inclusivity or diversity? And I believe an inclusive culture is what ultimately brings diversity, and that's why we're seeing, when I became the pastor at Hope Church, it was, the people of color percentage, the demographic was about 2%. Today, in our church, there's about 30% of people of color, and it's awesome. And so I think developing an inclusive culture, that's what brings diversity. And I believe, inclusivity and encouraging people to run for office is huge as well. But it's breaking down these barriers and offering people those opportunities to serve. Many people don't know this. One of those churches that I started a few years back, it was an African-American church. It was 100%. They didn't have an ordained minister, and there was 5 people. And so I became their ordained minister, and so I was their pastor, and I was the only Irish German in their congregation. Today it's a larger church than mine. And so really, diversity begins with an inclusive heart and mindset.
Candidate Goracke, you can drill down a little more on exactly how can City Council encourage diverse participation in city government?
Well, one of the things that I've learned doing this, first of all, running for office, is that it takes an awful lot of money to run for office. It's actually shocking, and so for people perhaps that are on the different scale as far as their income, it's very difficult, and I don't really think that they can make elections any more open, or they can put barriers as far as income goes. But I just really find that it's actually kind of disturbing, the amount of money that it takes to run for office, and that will exclude people. The city council, basically, they can offer the culture, and they can offer people those opportunities to serve on different boards and commissions. But when it gets to elected office, I will tell you, I see issues there where that puts up barriers and stops people.
Candidate Matchett, what can City Council do to encourage diverse participation?
Well, I actually agree with Al here, because I actually serve as a board member on Blueprint Campaigns, and it is a nonpartisan organization that encourages underrepresented minorities from running for office. So we train the future leaders, the campaign managers, those who are looking to get into politics and have those high barriers to entry. So that is definitely something I'm passionate about. But more importantly, this government is representative of the people, and representation matters. I think we have discovered that when you see people who look like you in a room, it is easier to walk into that room. And so when we have a diverse panel of city council people, anyone can walk in and say, okay, this is a room I belong in. And so I think, my presence alone on the council would certainly, I think, encourage a participation. But then I think if you met me too, you'd see that I'm approachable and welcoming, and really want you to be involved. I think the Blaine citizens deserve to be involved in the things that are affecting them. And so having a council that's open to hearing that returns phone calls, that responds promptly is very important.
And Amanda Matchett, as a member of the City Council, how would you provide opportunities for constituents to let you know of their concerns?
Yeah, absolutely. On all of my flyers and all of everything that's gone out, it's my personal email and phone number. I am your neighbor. I want to be available for you. That's my home address on the flyers. I think being available, and again, being that ear, is the thing that will help the most get people involved and engaged. I also think, holding forums that are available so people can come and speak to you. They don't have to call, but maybe they'll show up to an event. And so I will look forward to having those in the community as well, to make sure that I'm available to all of Blaine citizens.
Al Goracke, how would you provide opportunities for constituents to let you know their concerns?
Well, again, it's just making yourself available. I right now I get 250 emails a day, I get 50 texts a day, and I get about 30 phone calls to my cell phone a day. And I respond to every one of them. And so I think part of it is it depends on the person. If they make themselves available and they answer those calls, they answer the emails, I mean that's going to be a big step in the right direction. But I also believe that city council members in the past, they haven't always shown up to events outside of meetings or workshops. And I think I love seeing some of the council members today out there and showing up at events. Usually it's been like the mayor that shows up. And I believe that council people also need to be at these events. I've got like 7 weeks of PTO that I haven't used and 4 weeks sabbatical that I've got. So I want to use that time to be out there and make myself available. And so people can talk to me face to face as well as by email and phone and text.
And candidate Goracke, a little bit more specificity here about involvement. How would you advocate for public opinion to be honored in municipal projects? Thinking of maybe Northtown property, 105th Avenue.
Yeah, and I mentioned I'm on the Planning Commission, and all the people don't understand what the Planning Commission is. It's an advisory board to the City Council. The City Council has all final say on what the Planning Commission does. But the Planning Commission, what it does is it receives city staff reports, and then it has open forum. And I want to tell you something, the purest amount of feedback that the city of Blaine gets is in a Planning Commission meeting. It's by these open forums. And so the reality is I think we can do more of those. I think we should have more open forums, not just in a meeting. And we should like when I was involved in the charrette for the Northtown redevelopment plan, it was just kind of like industry leaders and people that were connected. And I think that's how they roll it out. But ultimately, we want every person that's available that can have some kind of an input. We did a pretty good job keeping people connected online through COVID, and I think we need to do more of those things, of giving people opportunities to have their input and their say in what's happening in the city.
Candidate Matchett, how will you advocate for public opinion to be honored in municipal projects?
Sure. I think that transparency is always key. I know at the county level, there's been some limitation to the ability of citizens to come and be able to speak at meetings. I would not advocate for that. We're their representatives. We represent you. You should be able to come to our meetings and say your opinion. We're elected by you. Additionally, I think there's a proactive opportunity as well. It's getting out there and knocking on those doors and finding out what matters to you, meeting people where they are. Not expecting them to show up or come to a meeting or maybe wait until there's something they're angry about. Let's go out and find out what is on their hearts and minds now. And that's really what I've been doing, during this campaign season, is making those phone calls and knocking on those doors and showing up and saying, I'm here, I want to hear from you. And I think that's something that we need to continue to do as leaders in the community, is proactively engage people to understand their wants and needs for the community.
Another topic that emerged from public input was transportation. Candidate Matchett, do you have any strategies for making public transportation more accessible for Blaine residents?
Absolutely. I think that there's a number of things. It needs to be increased. I think that, it is hard to find public transportation in the area. It's available, but it's very specific. And I think having an increased and transparent schedule, of things available. We have to go to Coon Rapids to get the light rail downtown. We could have more options like that, especially with the amount of tourism that's coming to Blaine. Is there should be an option to get here in an easy manner, and it should also be sustainable. So I want to make sure that when we are considering transportation options, that we're considering the environmental impact as well, because we're only as, our transportation is only as good as the impact that it has on the community. So those are the things I'd really focus on, is sustainability and then, accessibility, like you said, and that comes with increased opportunities. And really that's something that we could fund and encourage, especially as we're making improvements to Highway 65.
Candidate Goracke, do you have any strategies for making public transportation more accessible?
Well, again, I hate to come back to Highway 65, but that is a huge part of what we need to improve. And it's like, the reality is, it's all about getting those resources. And Blaine has been passed by from county officials and by state officials about getting resources, and we need to get the resources. It's going to be fixed. 165 is done, but also a key to that is the Northtown area as well being redeveloped. The transportation issues that we have, there have been some problems with transportation and some crime activity around Northtown, and I believe with redevelopment, that's going to also clear us a path for an enhanced transportation system, 65 and Northtown.
We're going to move on to another topic, this time unions. Candidate Goracke, when selecting printers, contractors, and manufactured goods, should the city consider their relationship with unions?
Well, I think that the reality is we want to be involved with the best quality workers that we can. And so, yes, I mean, we should be looking at union labor. We should be also looking at non-union labor. I think it should, I think that as a city council member, I don't think you can prejudge people and go, well, they're not union, therefore we won't look at what they can do for the city. I think you need to open it up to everybody, and then you need to hire the best. And that's what the taxpayers are paying for. They work hard to pay their taxes, and it's like in the very end, yes, we need to look at union labor, but we also need to look at non-union labor and hire the most qualified people.
Candidate Matchett, when selecting printers, contractors, manufactured goods, should the city consider their relationship with unions?
Absolutely, we should. I've been endorsed by the Teamsters. I am certainly a proud union partner. I agree, we should consider all workers and look at who's going to do the job the best. But I do have faith and want to, advocate for our local workers, and many of them are union workers. I also, back to the sort of labor trafficking issue I mentioned before, a lot of those come with non-union companies. So union or not, I think when we're looking at those opportunities, we need to make sure that the companies that we engage with follow the law, that they are paying wages fairly, and that they are, they're not only, the best at what they do, but that they're following the letter of the law, and they're going to be a proud representative of Blaine, and that they're going to invest in this city and be, and have an extended partnership. They're not going to just come here, build their building and run away. And so those are the things that we consider. Now, like I said, I'm a proud, union supporter. And so I would be excited to advocate for that. But I do see, like I said, I would fully consider all options.
And moving to the topic of the environment, candidate Matchett, as the largest city in Anoka County, Blaine has the chance to be a leader in sustainability and environmental issues. How would you make this a priority with City Council?
Yeah, one of the common themes I've heard when I've been speaking to citizens is about solar panels, and how a lot of the HOAs locally will not allow solar panels. And so I think that's something that the city council could really be a leader on. Homeowners should get to choose how they get to run their homes and what sustainability measures they want to put in. Also, when I talked about transportation, we want to consider the sustainability options of that. We also have 500 acres of wetlands right here in Blaine with walking trails, and I really think that's a robust opportunity for us. Not only do building that out and more walking trails will create jobs, but it gives children locally educational opportunities, like at Cedar Creek. There's other places that's available right here. And I think teaching students young about the importance of environmentalism is really the best sustainability option that we have. And so I think there's a lot of opportunities right here in Blaine that we can really be a leader in environmentalism.
Candidate Goracke, how would you make sustainability and environmental issues a priority with City Council?
Well, again, Blaine is doing a fairly good job of this. We have 67 parks, actually 66. They're building a brand new park up by Lever Street, up by Sunset Elementary, and we have those trails, as Amanda mentioned. And so I think we do a really good job of being environmentally conscious here. Back in my days when I was a business owner, I mentioned I was a dry cleaner. We were the first dry cleaner in the nation that tried a non-toxic, 0% polluting dry cleaning fluid. It was CO2. It was the stuff that gives the fizz in your pop to clean clothes. And I got it by a grant from the state of Minnesota. And I believe that, there's all kinds of other grants out there that the city council needs to be bringing and helping and working alongside businesses so that they can take advantage of those resources, so that we can even be better at what we do with the environment here. And so working alongside business, I believe that will be a key.
Lastly, in topics, we have a mixed bag of questions about government's role and government's effectiveness. Candidate Goracke, what infrastructure needs would you prioritize on City Council and why?
Well, I guess the infrastructure needs that I think are really important at this point is the protection of basic resources. 2022 is all about resources, all right? And a few years ago, we had a water situation that happened here in Blaine, and we built a new water filtration plant, and it was kind of a dark day in Blaine, but the reality is a good thing happened from that. And one of the things happened was now we have quality water, but we also have enhanced security on our water. Have you ever wondered what would happen if some of our major things like food and water was hacked by some kind of terrorist? Well, guess what? You're going to have plenty of water here in Blaine because I believe it's the computer security program called SCADA, and it's pretty much unhackable. And so we're going to have plenty of water here in Blaine. I believe the infrastructure that we need is security for the basics. As a food shelf CEO, there are food shortages all over, and I believe it's having the basics: energy, food, and water.
Candidate Matchett, what say you about infrastructure needs and which are the most important?
Sure. I mean, I think in this conversation, we've realized that all roads lead to Highway 65. So I think that we can't, I'd be remiss if we didn't discuss that. But I think there are other issues and opportunities. I think transportation is one of them. Again, Highway 65 has to sort of be sorted out before we can kind of trickle down to these other areas. But I think, transportation infrastructure is very important, and is a place that City Council can really get involved and make a difference. And so I'm excited about that. I think that, our schools as well, which, the City Council doesn't necessarily have a role in funding, but certainly has a voice in this community. Sunrise is already bursting at the seams. My nephews go to school there. They just put a request in for 8 more classrooms. So there are some other infrastructure issues like that we really need to address and consider. How do we make sure that we're planning ahead so in 5 more years we are bursting at the seams again? And so I'm excited to be a leader and be a vocal advocate for some of those other infrastructure needs.
Another question about the government's role, effectiveness, reaching out. How might Blaine City Council work with the Anoka County Board to provide more funding for public libraries?
I have to say, I love the library. I regularly have meetings at the Johnsville Library. I have been raised always feeling really comfortable in libraries. And so I'm excited, that that's something we can partner on and something that I can advocate for. As I've talked about, I've built close relationships with, members of the Anoka County Board, including folks that are running now. And I think, like we've talked about, relationships are so impactful and important. And when you have strong partnerships and relationships, you can get a lot of work done. And so I'm excited about that, and really being, again, a proactive advocate and leader with that board in partnership to secure the funds and prioritize libraries. I know that libraries look different. I regularly use the e-library app, but I still use it from my public library. And so I think that, people may think that the face of what libraries look like is changing, and it is, but I still think it's such an important resource that we should be prioritizing.
And Candidate Goracke, how can Blaine City Council work with the Anoka County Board?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I mean, we've had this food shelf now in Blaine for 12 years, and I don't think I've had one Anoka County commissioner come out and check out to see all the people that need help in Blaine. And so I think there has been an issue and a disconnect between our leaders in Blaine and Anoka County. There are some great leaders that are currently on the Anoka County Board, and I know the ones that are running and know the ones that are there. I believe that, I believe in libraries, and I believe that we should work with them. In fact, there's actually kind of a unique thing with Anoka County. If Anoka County Road and a Blaine Road meet, Blaine has to pay 75% of the stoplight. And in some cities, in the county don't even have to pay. And so I'm talking about leveraging those relationships and influencing Anoka County and working with them to get the resources that we need for libraries and for all kinds of other issues in Blaine.
Moving on now to a couple questions really about people's overall health and their mental health. Candidate Goracke, how can the community support our veterans? What role should Blaine play in how they come home after serving?
Well, beyond the yellow ribbon, we do have that organization in Blaine, and I think that's an amazing thing. And of course, we have the Veterans Park, the Tom Ryan Park, outside of this building. And I think that says a lot for how Blaine looks at their veterans. And recently, there was a park dedication of a bench of a veteran who is gone now, and so I mean I think Blaine does a really good job of investing in veterans, but I also think that their veterans need a lot of help. There's a lot of veterans that come through our food shelf that need help in their families, and so I really do believe that there are all kinds of nonprofits that the city can actually connect with veterans so that we can do a better job of adding value to their families and taking care of them. And so I just think it's an untapped resource. Government can only do so much, but there are a lot more things that we can offer and help those veterans in Blaine and beyond.
Candidate Matchett, how can our community support veterans?
Yeah, I think that the government and elected officials have to support our veterans. They have supported us. We owe it to them to not rely on outside help, but to be the advocate for them. There's another candidate that's running that has an idea of starting a veterans office that would help, with homelessness. That's an issue certainly in the area, and I am fully in support of that. He's a veteran. I want to listen to his ideas and make sure that I support him in getting those initiatives off the ground to really support our local veterans. But I really think that it has to come from the government, from the elected offices. We rely on them. We have to show up for them. And I want to make sure that I'm an available asset to listen to our veterans, again, to support initiatives that will better support their mental health, their physical health, to increase their job opportunities as well. A lot of your success relies on your job. And so I'm excited that there's initiatives on the table to support our veterans.
And Candidate Matchett, beyond veterans issues and mental health, is there a role for the city in mental health of its residents?
Absolutely. Again, I think there has to be. I think we have to be aware that those are issues. We have to make sure that there is zoning and funding available for healthcare resources right here. We have the 988 hotline that was just released. I'm so excited. I think that's a great step in the right direction. But it also goes to those educational resources as well. We have a crisis of the amount of school psychologists and counselors that are available to our students. And again, it's not just a student issue. It goes all the way through. But I definitely think that the city council has to have a role. They have to be comfortable having those difficult conversations and really hearing that people out on what their needs and wants and how we can support them. And so, this has definitely been something that's close to my heart. It's, the work that my sister does day in and day out. And I'm excited to, again, be that advocate for the needs of our community.
And Candidate Goracke, a role for the city in mental health for its residents?
Well, I believe so, and there is still, I can't believe it, in 2022, we still have a stigma about mental illness out there, and it's anybody that has had depression or anxiety has dealt with mental illness. And I read one statistic that 30% of the people out there are in depression or coming out of depression or will be going into depression. And so it's like, this affects every person. And so it is an epidemic. I deal with it through our food shelf. I definitely deal with it through our church and its kids. and it's seniors, and it's like it's tragic what's happened in the last few years due to COVID and the isolation. It's really affect people's mental well-being. So I think the city definitely needs to feel comfortable, as Amanda said, having those discussions about mental illness and then actively looking for ways that we can resource and help people get the help that they need, because it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's in your neighborhood, it's in your family, it's with your friends, and we need to help people.
Candidates, you've tackled a lot of heavy questions this evening. So let's end this portion of our forum with a lighter question. Al Goracke, what is your favorite place to go to in Blaine?
My favorite place to go to in Blaine is probably the tavern, the patio in the tavern. It's just kind of a peaceful thing. They have a nice little brick and stone wall out there, and it's just kind of like secluded. And it's just one of the places that I like to go with my wife. I go on date night with my wife. I've been doing it for 37 years, so I like to date my wife once a week, and I love to go to the tavern. I also like Clive's as well. I like eating outdoors. I mean, let's be really upfront. I mean, we get probably about 5 really good months out of the year, and whenever I can, I like to eat outside, and that's why I love it when restaurants have patio seating. And there's something just about being outside, having a nice meal, and relaxing. So those are the places I love to go.
Amanda Matchett, your favorite place to go?
Well, other than my sister's house to visit my nephews, I would have to say Invictus is probably one of my favorite places. It's actually, locally owned by other Blaine residents, so I like to make sure that I'm patronizing places that are local. But also they have great food and good drinks too. We just had my mom's retirement party there in December. They have a great location, indoor and outdoor space, and so when the weather's nice and I'm ready to have a cold drink, that's definitely a place that I'll have our friends and family meet.
It's time for closing statements. Amanda Matchett, your closing statement.
Sure. I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to come and speak to you. I'm obviously a fan of the League of Women Voters and use it to inform my own decisions at many times. I think that Blaine is ready for a person of color, a woman of color, to be a leader. I think that that Blaine deserves to have its 26% of folks have a voice at the table. And I also am just excited because I think Blaine is a great community. I want to make sure that my family, and your family have the opportunity to thrive and live and work here in Blaine. And so I really look forward to earning your vote on August 9th.
Al Goracke, your closing statement.
Well, thank you, Linda. Thank you, League of Women Voters. It's truly an honor to even be considered to serve in some capacity in the city, and I just want to thank Amanda as well for running, and Terra for running as well. All three of us have what's called terminal degrees. That means it's the highest degree. We all have doctorates, and that's kind of a unique thing when you're talking about all three people running for the same position. And so I really do believe that Blaine will be well served in Ward 3 going forward, no matter who is selected. But I'm a unique candidate. I have a unique bunch of different experiences in different arenas and successes in those arenas. I have for-profit business experience, I have nonprofit business experience, and I also have community service experience on the Planning Commission, Charter Commission, and as a chaplain. And so, you know what? Blaine needs somebody with experience to get those resources to redesign Northtown and Highway 65. And I'm Al Goracke, and I'm asking for your vote on August 9th. Thank you.
Thank you to both of our candidates here for speaking to voters about issues and for running in the election for Blaine City Council Ward 3. Thanks to NorthMetro for their video production. And thank you, viewers, for your interest in becoming more informed about this election and your options. As we move through the election season, link to all our local election forums at LWV ABC MN.org, as well as the Blaine City channel, NorthMetro website, and YouTube. All of those will have these forums, so easy to find. And again, if you have questions left unanswered, contact the candidates directly. They want to hear from you. To register to vote or to update that registration, go online to mnvotes.org. You can also register when you go to vote. No excuses. Make your voice heard in the primary election by voting on or before August 9th.